separate that. A lot of people will talk about separating your business from your relationships, separating your business from your marriage, but you can't. Like that's a part of life. When you're in business together, your marriage is your business. Your business is your marriage. Whether it's your family, whether it's the kids you're raising, you have to have like-minded goals, but there also has to be a thing.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the podcast. Coming to you for the very first time from the poker room at the Venetian Resort, Las Vegas. Super thanks and gratitude to all of the fine folks here at the Venetian Resort, Las Vegas for making this happen on the day of the grand opening of the poker room, the largest poker room on the Strip. We are going to be here frequently, and we would love to see you in person. Listening to the podcast is great. Being here in person is literally at least 10 times better. And we are kicking things off with none other than the magnificent Bowtie Doctor, Dr. Skip Wyss. And he is going to be talking to us today about a challenging subject, which is working with your spouse. Now, entrepreneurs, everybody loves the idea. I mean, doesn't that sound like a dream? Here's what I'll do. I'll create a business where I work with my spouse. And most people get down that road and then they find out. I hear so many people tell me, oh, we tried that and that just didn't work. Well, Skip and his beautiful wife, Julie, have figured out a formula to make that work. And I'm super excited to dive into that. I want to start off, Skip, with what gave you this idea to work with your spouse to begin with?
Being of the same profession, we're both chiropractors to begin with. Going to school together, all of that led to us working together. Now, you'll see in chiropractic and in a lot of service professions, there will be a fracture immediately. But you have to understand that when you're working with your spouse right off the bat, there has to be a congruency. You have to have a similar minding, a similar goal in mind. And then what are the avenues you're going to take to get there? So Julie and I both wanted to work in our own practice, and we didn't want a boss. So that's what kept us together. Plus, we had a child shortly right before we graduated from school. So that kind of kept us all together right away.
Love it.
When you say there's going to be a fracture, did anybody else, when he said that word, I kind of went, ooh, fracture. I know what a fracture is like. But I do believe that working with your spouse isn't always easy. And so tell me a little bit about learning how to dance that dance with each other and how some of the trials and tribulations you may have gone through.
Well, there's a lot of very specific roles that you're going to play in this relationship and in a business, and being able to separate that. A lot of people will talk about separating your business from your relationships, separating your business from your marriage, but you can't. Like that's a part of life. When you're in business together, your marriage is your business. Your business is your marriage. Whether it's your family, whether it's the kids you're raising, you have to have like-minded goals, but there also has to be a thing called no compromise. And I've learned this from you and working with you guys and working with you, David, as well, is in a relationship when you're working together, you're both going to have commonality goals together, and then you're each going to have individual goals. And if you're working correctly with each other, you're going to help each other achieve their individual goals, and those come together as a whole to create this goal that you are trying to achieve together as a couple. And it's not a tit-for-tat type situation. So I'm not going to lose on mine so Julie can gain hers, or Julie's not going to lose on hers so I can gain mine. We're going to get there together, but we're going to get there at different paces. And if we can support each other, that's the key. In previous conversations as well, when you're in a relationship with your spouse, sometimes it can be very, very one-sided when you're in a business. And what will happen is as you become more successful in business, you're going to create different verticals from that business. And you're going to see your wife go into coaching, you'll go into coaching, you'll want to work with other entrepreneurs. But what happens is one side of that will become kind of the cheerleader, and the other side will be the one that kind of sits back, and that can't happen. The person that's doing all the cheerleading actually needs to be cheerleading for themselves, and that brings the other person up, and they come along with you, and you go along with them. And that can be a really one-sided thing. So working together in that does not then cause a fracture. A lot of people don't communicate, and that's what kills it.
You know, it's so interesting, and everybody knows I'm a time freak, and I look at time as a dependent variable, and the amount of time that we spend paying attention and giving intention to the activities during the day. And so I believe, like you, that all married couples, they collaborate, coordinate together their time. And whether you work at the same place as your wife, there's already one layer of stress, right? I got to go on this business trip. I got to do this. And then moving forward, if you then put into the construct that we work together in the same business, but different business units, or you have different roles. One person may make more decisions than the other person, or then you have the financial layer involved where they both have to take on the financial stress.
Yeah.
Then you have the people problems on top of it where they both are taking on the people problems as well. And so it becomes an added, it's like people who say you should marry someone from the same religion. That this is somehow a guarantee that your marriage is going to be better than if you are from different religions. No, it's just there'll be more layers if you don't have similarities, et cetera. And yet there's the variances that are involved. So I think a lot of it for me is how many layers do you want in your marriage to have a possible conflict and emotional drain, and you're really, in my opinion, by working together, taking on a lot more than if you're not, especially today, of the same religion. You take on so much more if you're, like I work with my wife, she manages she manages her properties. Thank God
Nice
I fixed
correction
Thank
there.
God I
Nice
fixed
correction.
that.
Very
'Cause
good.
Lacey was
Very-
going to
I'll let
tell
her
her later
know.
today that
Yeah.
I said that, and she's like, "What
Already
do I?"
texting her.
She's checking the trust. Wait, whose name is that mother? But anyway, but when we make decisions, I think for a bigger picture is how many layers do you want of possible conflict and being able to handle all those. And I'm blessed because I've really identified those in the last 10 years and made sure that, but needless to say, even though we do very little together in business other than the property side, I will most commonly get into a frustrating situation because she'll say this one thing: "You are not my boss." You are not my boss, because I am the boss so much of the day. And then so I couldn't imagine if I actually was her boss, where the problems would be.
Or she was your boss? Just
She
saying.
is, but I'm okay with that. That's the difference. Like, I'm very much okay telling everyone she is my boss.
Yeah.
I think one of the most important things to understand in that is that depending on what role you're taking on in that dynamic of business together, who's making those decisions? Are you coming together as a team and really figuring that out of what's in the best interest for us, our family, and our life? But even more importantly is when you listen to that person is what do they need from you? You know, if your wife is constantly making decisions, like my wife, Dr. Julia, she's constantly making decisions. When she gets home, she doesn't want to make decisions anymore.
Decision fatigue.
She's going to look at me and ask me to make decisions, and she's not going to push back. And what I found is that when she's making decisions for us in our business, I know that she has our best interest in mind. She knows that when I'm making decisions for our family, she knows that I have our best interest in mind. And bottom line, it comes back to us working together as a team, as a whole, trying to achieve one singular goal. And with like what you're talking about with Julie, yeah, those dynamics do get crossed at times. And our wives, if they're amazing partners and one of our best friends in life, which is how this thing should work, they have a right to check us. They have a right to say, hey, you know, you're not my boss.
But maybe we should give our Julies, because both of our wives' names are Julies, better decision-making capacity with the way we dress.
Yeah, with the way, like where
Mine keeps telling me to dress like Shawn, and I'm thinking maybe Julie should put a hand into both of our attire. I'm just saying.
You should ask Lacey what Shawn's main outfit is. It's called golf.
And it's pink.
It is pink.
In white glasses.
Let's talk
right.
about a delicate subject then that I hope will apply to every single person that's listening today, and that's conflict. Right? So let's talk stop, drop, and roll. And especially, like you talked about, layers. More layers and potential areas of conflict that exist, the more conflict that arises. And that's why people don't want to work with their spouse, because they're like, look, I mean, it's difficult enough to juggle a relationship, a marriage, just on its own. If we don't work together, why add these additional layers of conflict? But then, you know, two things. One, people always ask us, like, so what do you do? Like, is there like this, like, you know, this cut, and then you go from business to, you know, let's just leave business at home. But then and I think the same thing, like with conflict, it's easy then to take a business conflict and then take that home, right? And then that affects, your home life. Let's talk conflict resolution, because I think that for anybody listening, whether you work with your spouse or not, that's absolutely a critical thing in marriage. So like, how do you handle conflict, and how do you avoid taking that, something that happened at work and then just dragging that out for 3 days at home?
I understand how my wife deals with conflict. So understanding how your spouse deals with it. I'm a talker. I want to talk out. I want to talk through conflict. I want to figure out immediately what's wrong, how can I fix it, and how can I make this better. Julie is a let it sit, let it marinate, give her an hour, maybe 2, maybe 3, and then come and talk, because she's currently thinking in her mind, how is she going to respond to me? How is she going to keep me from having an emotional reaction, which I'm a very emotional person? And then how is she going to be able to convey a message to me that's going to make sense in my head? And I'm the same way with her. It's just knowing how do we immediately handle the situation, or do we back off? A lot of people, and in a lot of relationships, one side of it doesn't know how to back down. So they'll push and they'll push and they'll push, which then creates a pretty large divide, and it makes the other one either feel like they could be getting emotionally badgered when they just want time to process it. It's just like in sales, when we talk sales, when you talk to somebody about what your fees are and what you cost, you should just sit there and listen. You don't have to sit there and justify. Let them process what's going on, and then let them come back with a response. So I've learned literally over 20 years of being with my wife that I need to back off. So when things are something happened, or if something's wrong, I'll back off, let her think, and let her do her thing, and she'll come to me, and we will eventually talk it through. If she does something where she knows I'm mad, she's probably going to address it pretty quickly with me, because I'm going to want to talk about it, or I'll sit there and stew on it all day. And in the profession that I'm in, when I'm placing my hands on people, I can't have a negative energy rolling through my mind all day. That affects their health care. So she knows exactly where to come in and where to pull away from. And that's a very delicate balance, but it's learned. These aren't things that you can just read in a book. Like you have to learn this balance with your spouse and your best friend.
And practice. Like
And
people leave that word
practice.
out. Right?
Yep.
It's okay to learn something, but if you learn Spanish and don't practice it, you're not going to know it
Go
anymore.
away. Right. Well, and it's important. I think, conflicts clarify, and there is a need for conflict in any relationship.
For growth.
I mean, for growth, exactly. There has to be conflict in working together. There's conflict with your team. There's conflict with your friends. There's conflict with any relationship. The question is how can you be in practice on learning how to resolve that with that individual in particular? Because you're right. I think a lot of people have a way that they handle conflict that works for them, but it doesn't necessarily work for the other party. That's why oftentimes we have no resolution with things. And so how have you applied that also into your business with your team? Because you said, wow, it took like 20 years to figure this out with her. Like then we
Join the
hire
club.
people into our
Constantly learning
business.
experience.
Yeah, we hire people into our business, and they've worked with us for 3 months, and we're trying to figure out how to have a, very constructive conversation with them with conflict, and it's not always easy.
It's do they fit the culture? And we've worked, Shawn and yourself and I have worked a lot on trying to figure out culture. And from what I've basically devised from all of this is like, do they fit the culture of your business? Is your culture where you're constantly in front of them? Not necessarily, are you correcting them? Are you trying to get them better as a teammate? Can they handle that conflict in your culture? Are you in a culture where we're hanging out barefoot, wearing Birkenstocks all day and burning sage? Like that's probably not the most.
That might handle some conflict, though.
Right, but that's probably not the most conflicting head-on culture.
Right.
Where when you're making quick, fast business decisions that are in people's faces, they have to fit that.
Right.
And if they're into more of that laid back environment where, hey, we just kind of deal with it, and then afterwards we sing a song and play the ukulele. Like
In Kumbaya.
In Kumbaya, that's definitely not the person you want in your culture. But if you're upfront with the culture and what you're trying to establish, that's how you know then they're coming into our environment, they're coming into our sandbox, and these are the rules of the sandbox.
Right.
These are the rules of this environment.
You know what comes to mind, and I came to this later on in life about my own faith, the simple faith, the best option faith is pretty much applicable to almost everyone's religion, philosophies, theories, and spirituality, which is there's something bigger than me that loves me, protects me, and promotes me. And that's a real revelation you could
Yeah.
say that I was saved by that perspective or faith. Then I looked to my marriage, and I said, once I shifted my paradigm of having faith in my wife, in other words, I'm looking always for what I want. So in all of those conflicts and all of the layers of conflict, where I used to go to what I didn't want in her, when the conflict arose, I have this faith in her that there's an unconditional love, just like I did, and I utilize in my bigger faith that loves me more than my mom, because I have faith my mom loves me. So then I also have faith in that relationship. And then there's a lesser degree in business that causes a duality because you don't have a lifetime commitment.
Right.
I have a lifetime commitment to God. I have a lifetime commitment to my wife, but I don't have a lifetime commitment to my chief marketing officer.
Right.
And I don't expect he or she to have one to me.
Correct.
And so now we have this faith issue of, well, I can only have so much faith in you because of all these past employees, or they can only have so much faith in me because of all these past employers. And I think that issue of working in employer-employee context with someone that we have lifetime faith with is a conflict in itself that allows us to question our faith in our marriage with all the different variables I discussed. I think at its core, for me, those values that I have are so important that you have to just be honest with yourself that I just don't have that much faith in my business and in my employee, but I have absolute faith in my wife and in God.
And I think that actually listening to that makes a hell of a lot of sense, because when you own your business, when it's your nest egg, your baby, you are committed to it.
For life.
And you are
its
expecting
life.
And
Its life.
if
The
you
life
come
of the
if you
business,
come at this slightly jaded, where you're expecting that employee to come in with the same value set as you and that commitment, a lot of owners find themselves, myself included, I've been here, where I'm almost offended that they want to leave after 2.5 years.
Sure.
Where it's like,
All of
We
us.
talk-
how
we
are you?
all
of
get-
us.
How
We've
are
been
you
talking about
not?
that all day,
How are you
actually.
not committed
Yeah.
to this process as much as I am? Well, duh, dude. Like, they're not going to.
They're
be.
not going- they're not supposed to
They're
be,
not
though,
supposed
either.
to be.
Or
They're-
Right.
if they do illustrate, this is true in your marriage too, and with your parents who do love you. Sometimes they lie to you because they want to please you.
Yeah.
We talked.
And so now you're looking at your best employees
Yep.
who do have more faith than the other employees. The other ones don't care, so they'll tell you the truth. The other ones, it's like, oh, I don't want to let them down.
Yeah, they care
I'll
so
work all
much.
night,
Yeah.
but I'm going to really take Friday off and go to the beach.
Yep.
Right.
But they got all their shit done.
Yep.
And this is such a difficult, complex issue, and which is why, going back to the point of the conversation,
Yep.
why people who take on working with their spouse are taking on a lot more than people that don't.
Yes. Well, I have to
that-
say one other thing I think is really important listening to you guys talk. One thing that we didn't bring up when it comes to conflict is how you resolve conflict within yourself. And we talked a lot about faith and trust and love and having a lifetime commitment. The first person you have a lifetime commitment to is you. And I think so many people have difficulty resolving internal conflict that it becomes very difficult to resolve external conflict.
Yeah.
And everything comes from the top down. And so I think mostly it's important to figure that out first, because then a lot of it becomes easy.
Can we
right?
finish with the best part? Is the one that I love is, what's the best part of working with your spouse? We've
Yeah.
talked about all the challenges, but obviously there's a great thing for you and for Shawn and Lacey and for me and Julie. What's the good stuff?
I absolutely love being around my wife. Like that is the.
I wish she was
utmost-
here right now.
Most, yeah,
me too.
mine too. Mine's
Yeah,
actually
extra seat for Julie.
Julie's working right now, so I can be here.
Right.
And I'm trying not to get emotional here, but it might happen. I absolutely love my wife and her being around me nonstop. So to me, it's always fulfilling to have time spent with her, whether it's in the office, whether it's on another one of our businesses, or watching her coach or anything. As long as I'm in her presence, I'm very, very, most of the time, super happy and grateful. Grateful. Like every morning I wake up and I am so happy that she's next to me. I tell her every morning, I kiss her on the forehead and I said, I'm so grateful for you being in my life. So she knows where I stand every day. Now, I can't say that's the same for her, that she constantly wants to be around me, because I don't think she does. I really don't.
I have the same feeling for me, too.
I really don't. In fact, for her birthday...
Women need space, and it's totally fine.
Yeah, for her birthday...
fine with you
For her
guys.
birthday, I got a hotel room for her, and I wasn't in it.
She loved it. She
was
actually
so
told me it
happy.
was one of her favorite
Well,
gifts
Lisa,
ever.
Lisa something cool like that. Like it's like, how
okay.
can you dare want to play tennis more than be with me, or
Right.
watch TikTok more than me?
Oh.
And she's straightforward. I do.
Yeah, she's like, I'd rather hit these balls
Exactly.
around. And
It's a little space, and then we love, yeah.
the other side of it with that, sorry, but the
More
other
like
thing too is
pickleball
when
than
I
it
was
is like tennis.
And the thing is that if you're raising I tie this into marriage a lot. If you're raising a male, if you're raising a man and you're a man, if you're raising a woman and you're a woman, it's fun to bring them in on this stuff, to show them how much you love your spouse or how much you love that person in your life. Like Brecken helped me set the hotel room up for her. So he was all excited. He put the chocolates up, he put the wine out, he put things on the bed for her, and he got this really soft blanket out, and he's like, Mom's going to love this. And I looked right at him, and I said, dude, this is how you treat your wife.
Love it.
And that's the key.
What about you? What's the best part about working with your spouse?
Yeah, what's that like?
I love being around you every day. Every morning we
Dressing
wake up,
him?
and I turn to Shawn, I kiss him on his hand, and I say,
His ring.
kiss him on the ring.
I love you. He doesn't even wear a ring.
He doesn't ever wear a
specific
ring. He
signet
doesn't even
ring
wear his
that he-
wedding ring.
I never take mine off.
No, honestly though, there's no greater joy than like sharing memories together, right? Things you can
Right.
look back on. And I would say that Shawn and I have a lot of fun together. Nobody makes me laugh as much as this guy, and nobody's a bigger brat. And so,
Wow.
I
So-
love
So
that.
you have a podcast with your wife.
Yeah.
I'm
You
going to
do.
encourage you. What you should do next is just invite your best friend on. Maybe what we should do is start adding kids. We'll
that'd
bring
be cool.
Oh,
one
that'd be
Meltzer
fun.
girl and one Dill girl. Just have like a big
gosh, our-
giant big. We could do that here.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Just all around the table and one random guest.
It's a
It's
lot
like,
of
what the heck did I
personalities.
get myself into?
Yeah.
That'd be perfect.
Us and our kids.
Where can people find your podcast?
They can find us on YouTube, Prime Podcast. They can find us on all of the Spotify stations, iTunes. It's all over. Prime Podcast. Prime Podcast is everywhere you wanted to find it, and it's incredible. So come check us out. Come join us. We got a few new podcasts rolling out here in the next probably 2 months on both lifestyle and what's going on in our community. So you're going to want to come join us. And if you want to learn anything about your health, your family, and how we raise our family inside our paradigm of chiropractic, it's where you want to be, and you're going to absolutely love it.
The name of the podcast once again?
The Prime Podcast.
You got it.
Did you enjoy your first podcast at the Venetian Resort Las Vegas?
Prime time
I
at the
did.
Prime
Venetian
time,
Resort
baby.
Las Vegas. We are blessed to be here. You're going to see us a lot more as we grow here with the Venetian Resort Las Vegas, the best poker room I've ever been in. And I've been in a lot.
Yeah.
All right, folks, join us next week right here on the podcast.